Okay. Okay, welcome back. Mila, you start. I don't know what to say at this point.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. Good news. It looks like, that we're here. That's already good news, right? 8 participants. Now, also good news that it seems that, those who do the work and those who just come to hang out, whatever is going on, we definitely came to a point of like a confusion, right? That's what it seems. What's confusion? Confusion is there to create a certain sense of bittul in us, right? Every single mimer goes through a state of confusion. Why? Because, I don't know, maybe somebody of us said, we understand, right? We figure that out. Then Hashem says, well, let me see how you figure that out, okay? Okay. And then we're like, right, so we humble ourselves. And as we know, why Mashpia does it? Who remembers chapter 1? Why Mashpia throws at the macabre something, right? Who remembers this whole interesting relationship between Mashpia and macabre?
I'm not sure what your question is, Mila.
Why? Why do you think we're coming to this place where we're like, oh my gosh, I don't understand what's going on? Where's the beginning? Where's the end? I thought I had a nice, beautiful thread, but now it's all mixed up. Why Mashpia is doing it? Why can he be more clear? Why can he be more organized? Why can he be more whatever, right? What we would like Rav Hillel to be. Why he's not like that?
Any student whose lips are not salivating bitterness.
Exactly. He's like, okay, that's one area. Let me see how well you really want it, and you're ready to work, sweat for it. Okay. The other one is that he is breaking our moach ha'evan, right? Because our mind has a certain limitation. Okay. And therefore, whatever we will be understanding with that mind will be limited. So Hashem says, you know what? Let me send Rabbi Hillel here to do the work. Right? And Rabbi Hillel starts talking in a very interesting way to us, and we're like, we don't understand, right? So what do you think happens in the brain when you literally want something to understand or to grasp, right? And it's not understandable, okay? It breaks itself, okay? It lets go its own limitations, and if you stick for a little bit longer, all of a sudden, the whole cloud will start become clear and clear. Okay, so the only way how to do it is just let's go back and let's review a little bit. Okay, so from as I understood that, with Naria, you guys been doing some chazar, which is great. And
well, last week we did some chazar on paragraph 11. Which
11.
is
Okay, beautiful. So 11 is a very, very essential. It's like a thesis of this part. Okay, so let's go back. What are we going to do in this whole third chapter? The third chapter, okay, chapter 1 was dealing with how his bonus brings us all the way up, okay, from Bina of Bina all the way to the Bina Liba. Everybody clear with that? We don't need to go back and remember all the levels right now, but it's there. Okay, we did it 2 times, 2 rounds. We should have more or less clear picture. But the bottom line, it shows us how this brings us all the way to there. Okay. We also learned about Chachma, and we also learned about Bina. Okay. What is it? Then chapter 2 went all the way and described that the same process of Eon, okay, brings us all the way down, okay, to our Tuvuna. Okay, the Tuvuna is that when Or HaEloki, the godly light, actually permeates the physicality of the brain. Okay, it changes the physicality of the brain. Okay, that's all the way down, right? From being that light, right? Because in our intellect, the Chochmah and Bina is light. Okay, now it comes down into the very physicality of our body. Okay, that's great. Now, what's chapter 3 brings in? So chapter 3, Reb Hillel says in the beginning, okay, guys, do you remember we learned about a concept, Koach skill, and all these beautiful things that was applied to any concept, right? That's mathematics, use this, those engineers, doctors, they all go through this process. Any seichel goes through this process. Says, okay, you know that? Okay, great. Now we're going to apply the same principles into enclothes. Why do you think he's telling into enclothes? Because that's why we came here in the first place, right? Chassidus is chakira elokis, is the analysis into God. That's the Frierdiker Rebbe's lashon about what is Chassidus. Chassidus is analysis into God. Who is God? What he wants? How he creates the world. Okay, that's the questions Chassidus answers. So since we came here to learn Chassidus, so we're talking about, okay, what do we do? So now, all what we learned in paragraph 1, in chapter 1 and 2, is going to be applied to godly light. Okay, and he makes a very general assumption, not assumption, a teaching that there are 2 lights that we need to master. And they happen simultaneously, right? Is the upper unity and the lower unity. Okay. Whatever that means. Okay, so the upper unity is more like the level of Chachma. Okay, it's how Hashem unites with the world of Atzilus, right? We call it the relationship between emanation and emanator. Okay, and then there's Mamalikul Almin. It's when Hashem already created, right? I don't know what emanator means actually. It's called Ma'atzil and Ne'etzalim, right? But the lower, from one we already a creation, from the world of Beriah down, our relationship with God. Okay. Now we are roughly, very, very roughly speaking, from Beriah down, we have a relationship of creation with a creator. Okay. In the world of Atzilus, the emanators, they are more in a way of extensions of God versus a creation of God, whatever that might be. Okay. So now obviously, when people are presented with that concept, they right away want to jump to the highest. Why do I need to learn how I am a creation and how Hashem is my creator? Where I could go and right away have a higher level of awareness. Why do I need to go through this? And the Mittel Rebbe warns. He says, no, we're going to go down up. We're first going to concentrate on Memalikul Almin. And then that will lead to Yehuda Ilah. Right? Why? Because if I am experiencing God, that's something outside of me. Now, God becomes a concept. Okay. Is there a possibility for me to jump into Chachma, into the vision of Chachma, before the understanding of Bina? No way. Remember, chapter 1, we learned. Right? Chapter 1, we first go from Bina of Bina, then into the Chachma of Bina, then into the Kesser of Bina, right? That's how we learn. We first learn the chitzonius letters, right? And then we find omek inside of them. After we find omek inside of them, the way we understand, then the light of Chochmah will shine on us the way it is given by Hashem, by the person, by the teacher, right? Then we are being drawn up actually, into how Chochmah is communicating, the vision of it. Okay, and then we already in Yehuda Ilah. Okay, so that we're going to use the same system. We cannot skip. Okay, so the same way we're going to put detail to detail is like putting letter to letter. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, I'm switching between chapter 1 and chapter 3. Okay, so I cannot go to Yehuda Ilah, which is how the concept is presented in Chachma. Okay, before I'm going to do my work of Yehuda Tata, meaning understanding the concept. We all get it, right? Now, I cannot say you cannot do it. Okay, Hashem could do anything. Hashem could take a person and completely remove the veil. Okay, that the light of Chachma is literally going to shine brightly in his brain. There are many, many stories. I'm sure you've read a few of them. Okay, that shows that there was one Makubal. He wrote one word for his Talmud to read, and now he got everything. He got everything. Amazing. But you know what? I don't know of such a Makubal right now. Okay, and so what are we going to do now? We're going to be going on a quest, finding such a Makubal, going to Yenuka, going to this guy, going to the other guy. Chassidus teaching us you don't need to wait for a Makubal to write a word on the ground for you to get that whatever vision. Okay, you could use your own brain. Okay, because everybody has everything. Remember, chapter 1 left us that all what the teacher is doing is turning on the light. Everybody has Koach HaMaskil. Okay, literally everybody, meaning that God is in everybody's being, everybody's consciousness. It's not something that we need to go to Makubal to or anything like that. Okay, and the match is given to us, and the matchbox is given to us, and we're striking it, right? And the light will illuminate, and we're going to get everything. Okay, so we don't have to think that the salvation is outside of us. Everything is inside. Okay, so after we do that, so what happens? So we go creation, right? We want to get to a place where we could trace my cup of coffee that's on my table all the way till Malchus of Atzilus. Okay, it's like putting letters in a nice, beautiful row that makes sense. Okay, like I'm reading a concept. So this is where we left off. So now, in order for us to understand how the light of Mamalikul Almin creates, sustains, okay, and illuminates, we need to understand mashalim. Why we need to understand mashalim? Because mashalim, it's something that we can touch, smell, taste, okay? It's something that we could think about and understand. And we cannot do that when I'm just going to be telling you stories about how amazing Mamalikul Almin is. Okay? Because then it's going to be my work, not your work. Okay, so by us doing his bonus on these 5 mashalim, and who remembers what are they? What are the 5 mashalim of Mamalikul Almin?
Miriam, you know, come on.
Are we talking about the the example given of the sun, the rays of the sun,
Exactly.
and
These are the mashalim.
candle, and the breath in the body, and the vitality and the power of the as it becomes more and more refined?
Exactly.
I'm not quite sure the 5th one.
Yeah. So it's like this: the light of the sun, the light of the candle. Okay. There's actually 4 mashalim, right? I'm all the time confusing because there's a 5 mashalim in later on in the chapter. It talks about Yehuda Ilah, right? But there's 4 mashalim: the light of the sun, the light of the candle, right? The way soul enlivens the body, right? And the power of movement. That's it. So there are 4 mashalim. Okay, so these are the 4 mashalim. Now, why we need to have all 4 of them? Why one is not enough? Then what we need to do, he is discussing what one adds, one doesn't have it in full, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, but we are on a track of Mamalekul Almin up until now. What we're going to do is when we will finish this track of Mamalekul Almin, when we're going to hear Reb Hillel's presentation on Mamalekul Almin, after that, we're going to be like, okay, we're going to do the work, right? Because he didn't finish his speech yet. Just it's like a long speech. Okay, so he didn't finish his speech yet, so therefore we cannot really draw a conclusion. There's nothing to conclude. He's still in the middle. We don't know what he's going to say next. Okay. So what we do know up until now, okay, sun. Okay, sun would seem to be an amazing mashal, because remember the two questions of the philosophers, right? How unlimited being could create limited, right? And how Hashem is not caught up in creation, more or less. That's the two questions. So he says, oh, you know why Hashem is not caught up in creation? Like the sun ray. He could shine on Mila's window. He could shine on Neria's window. He could shine on that window, on the other window, depending on the color. It could take any color and shape. But in essence, does the sun changes? No. The sun remains what it is. The sunlight remains whatever it is. Okay? Why this was not a good mashal, and we needed the or haner, the candle, the light of the candle. Why we needed this? Because since sun is not part of the Dalet Yisodos, right? Is not part of the four elements, which are what? It's fire, earth, water, and wind. Since it's not part of this four elements, everything on earth is created with a combination of this four. Okay? And he brought down the Rambam, I believe, that talks about fifth matter, right? Since it's like there's such a ruchniistic, less physical, whatever, something that's not relatable to the earth matter, okay, that shines upon us, it doesn't become one with it. Okay, whatever that means. Now, the Or Haner, the candle, since it's one of the elements, right, the element of fire, it becomes one with it. How do we know? We'll see with the wick, right? We'll see with the ptila that by consuming, that's how it actually becomes, becomes more evident, and it becomes one. The sun is not becoming one. Sun just shines upon us and then retracts. That's it. It doesn't become one with any of the elements. But, the fire becomes. That's why we need two of this. Okay, and he talks about Or Yashar and Or Chazer, that each one of them represents, right? If we look at the sun, it's like straight line, and the candle goes up. It's Or Chazer, is returning light. So Hashem is both. So Hashem's light, it's like both of them. But then it was not good enough. Why these two mashalim were not good enough? Who remembers? Why these two mashalim were not good enough?
Saratova, can you answer?
Why are the, no, I cannot answer.
Okay.
Not accurately.
No, but look at this. Let's just think. We're talking about the light of Hashem that creates and enlivens this creation. By looking at the sun and by looking at the light of the candle, they definitely illuminate. They become one with creation. But do they create? Do they enliven? No. Tell me one being that sun enlivens. Tell me one being that candle enlivens. No. So part of the Hashem's light, the description of part of the Hashem's light, they're amazing. But it's not full picture. It's missing the Chayus property of the light. Okay? So now let's see. What enlivens the body? What enlivens things? We only see it in a human being, right? That enlivens. the neshama actually enlivens the body. Okay? Neshama enlivens the body like two, as a general koach, as a general chayus, right? We went into this whole process of the heart and the heartbeat, the ratzo v'shov. This is all explaining us aspect, the general source. But you know what? It doesn't just generally enlivens. The neshama doesn't just generally enlivens the body. It also becomes very particular, right? It also becomes, narrows down to movement. Right now with science, we are fascinated of like a discovery about all the processes that happens in the body because of the neshama, right? Metabolism, this whole hormonal situation, okay, emotions, thoughts. If you think about it, there are so many things happening in our body, how we speak, all these amazing things. But you know what he says? It's great. Okay, so these are the two mashalim. Okay, the koach hatnuah, meaning koach hapo'el benifal, it's more of a tzimtzum, my eyes to see, my nose to smell, my mouth to speak, my hands to move, right? And then there's a general koach. And we know, for example, people are in coma. Okay, what's the problem with them? They have general koach. They are still in the category of alive, okay? Meaning the heart is beating and the brain has activity. But can we call them that they're really alive? No, because on the level of koach, they're missing that. The hands do not move, okay? They're not talking. So on the level of koach, they stopped, meaning the neshama just gives chayus to the body. But we don't see koach happening, okay? The powers are missing, okay? But it's alive, right? So that's what we're talking about, okay? But the light of Hashem is even more than that. And he makes a line over there. Truly, if we study the brain, he says, the neshama also comes into the body as or yashar and or chazer. But because it's happening in the brain, we can't really see what's going on there. Okay? With the heart and with the chay and with the koach, we could experience, right? I'm moving my hand, that's my koach. I'm listening to my heart, that's my chayus, right? But I cannot see with my brain activity, okay? Again, maybe now we could, see more with all the science that's going on, okay? But it's not something that I could consciously experience. So therefore, we're still using the sun and the candle. Okay, so we have this four mashalim. But then he says, you know what? There is a one deficiency that we don't even know how to fix. And there's no mashal for this, which is what? The neshama doesn't create the body. Okay, the neshama enlivens and gives koach to the body, right? Gives chayus and koach, meaning or chayus and koach. But it doesn't actually create the body. How do we know when the neshama departs, the body remains? Right? In the light of Hashem Memale, from the Malchus of Atzilus, boom, comes out, the Malchus of Atzilus also creates. It meaning it creates, illuminates, gives chayus, and gives koach to all of the creations. Okay? So that's where we left off so far. We have a picture synopsis so far? Obviously, we went into this whole, ratzo v'shoiv, right? What else we did? The flow of Hashem's energy, that it starts in Malchus, then divides into Lamed Kelim, and then we went into creation, right? Gives existence, the hishavos, the pulse of the hearts, right? So the pulse of the heart, he says that it's kind of two circles, right? Paragraph 14, we discussed that there are two circles. One is the general pulse, and then each limb has its own pulse. Okay, so he kind of divides between the Chayus and the Koach. Koach also goes through the miniature process of renewal. Why do you think he brings out this idea? He wants us to understand that all of creation renews itself constantly, meaning the whole world retracts into the essence of God and comes out, retracts and comes out. Why does it? Why creation has to do this? Why Hashem cannot just create the creation and be static? He could have done this, but he didn't do it. He wants to be, the helicopter parent. He wants to be involved in every single creation, every single moment. Okay, he wants to be involved parents. We have this. But that's what he does. And why? I don't know. That's what he chose to do, right? So all of creation disappears in Ayin, Eloki, and comes out. But it happens so fast that we consciously don't experience it. But with every blink that we take, it's an absolutely new reality.
Potentially.
No, actually. It's new. We just don't, we're so into it, it happens so fast. We think that it's static, but it's not.
Right. The Rotze and Shov, do we experience that only on the level of the pulse? Or could you say that you could experience it also with the breath, where you're taking the breath in and breath
that's out? Connected. The pulse connected to the because what happens? The body goes up. The blood goes up to be oxygenated. You could oxygenate only because you breathe, right? It goes through like this process through the lungs. So the breathing is part of the Ratzu Shov. So basically, the one big line conclusion, right, that Hashem creates and mahave and sustains the reality through these three layers of expression, right? It's Or, Chayut, and Koach. It's like there's three layers. Okay? And what happens then, right? Where on one hand, he makes everything appear separate. All of creation, it's separate, appears. But it is constantly rooted and constantly rooted within the godliness through the pneumius of kelim, okay, and renewed on a constant basis. That's the only way how it could still appear to be existing. That's the reason. Okay, because if Hashem wouldn't constantly sustain it, what do you think would happen? One day, not one day, just all of a sudden, like you take like one blink and there's nothing there. You don't even have consciousness to recognize it because you're part of it.
So, Mila, the Rotze and Shov, which is like, I guess what they talk about in Tanya, chapter 2, book 2, is about continuous creation, the fact that the world is being created and recreated at every moment. That kind of answers, for me, I'm saying this as a question really, where, he spoke about the philosophers, and that the philosophers said they came to the conclusion that the world was sustained by intermediaries. Mm-hmm. It may be Hashem, they weren't even sure that Hashem could create the world, but certainly it was all done through intermediaries. So I didn't understand, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to me? So then I was thinking, oh, actually what it means is they were saying maybe Hashem created the world, but then he withdrew from it and let it run on its own. Like, it's almost like the CEO of the business says, okay, I set up the business. Now here middle management can just run it. But there's no new energy coming.
There's no renewal. Renewal. Yes. So this whole renewal.
Yeah. So it's it was very confusing to me. I don't know if it was for anybody else. It's like, I'm not a philosopher, who are these philosophers? But actually, they're very deep questions because they're very deep conclusions that are coming out of them. And here, he's giving us all these answers, but if we don't have the question, it's almost like we don't even have the vessel to appreciate these answers. Because when he's giving you this whole thing about Rotze V'Shov and saying that that's how Chayus works, right? The Dofek and the continuous creation, he's showing us how Hashem is involved in every Dofek, literally. And it's hard for us to imagine because, like we were saying earlier, before the class started, we feel that we're alone. We feel the vat. We don't feel that every breath I take is Hashem breathing me. I mean, maybe occasionally here and there, but not on an ongoing basis. It's not our consciousness. And so he's feeding us these details to try and show us the extent to which Hashem is literally just like you feel your heartbeat. So Hashem is, as he's bringing us into existence and out of existence at every moment, so he's bringing the world into and out of existence at every moment, potentially. Am I
How do you say
correct?
potentially?
Well, the reason I'm saying potentially is like, I'm sure with the River of Change, you're talking about this, is that we constantly bringing the past into the future. Like we're holding on, we don't allow renewal to happen. I think I've spoken about this before that, I mean, I don't know how true this is because it's coming from various sources, but I learned about, that with serious illnesses, the truth of the body is that the cells want to reproduce themselves in a healthy way. But say with cancer, the cell gets something wrong inside of it, like an illness in the cell. But if you can connect to that ion, the cell will begin to reproduce itself in a healthy way. It wants to do that. But we are constantly bringing the past into the future. So the cell will keep reproducing itself as unhealthy. But there are some people who have managed to get into that ion, and then they have they recover in ways that are unexplainable from things like cancer, unexplainable. But it's almost like they manage to get into that ion space. That's why I say it's potential, because although it's happening, we don't necessarily we don't necessarily reproduce ourselves, like reinvent ourselves every moment, or allow ourselves to go into the ion and come back
I understand.
and let go of, the anger or the, whatever it is, potentially, yes, we can do that because the mechanism is there for us to do it, but we don't hook into it. We don't hook into
No,
it.
I thought you meant potentially referring to Hashem.
No,
Because from Hashem's perspective, he's actually doing it. Yeah.
right.
Us experiencing, we are kind of super consciously experiencing it because we are part of the creation, all of the creation experiencing it. But how consciously we are experiencing it, it's not. But if we tap into that potential of kind of in between the breaths, in a way, and okay, let me connect to that, and then that's actually what tshuva is. The whole idea that the tshuva could correct something that happened in the past, it's like such a bizarre idea. It's already happened. Okay, from now on you don't do this. How can you go back and fix your past? Doesn't make sense. Well, what happens is that tshuva is literally going in between the breath is, right? So to speak. And when a person reaches that place is above time. Okay? So when he, so quote, brings himself renewed, the past is no longer there with that expression, because you understand what I mean? We were, are, and will be as one being, as one reality. Okay. So when we fix it on the level which is above time, it goes backwards. We become a new entity. And once you become new entity on that level, when it comes down to the line of time, that person never existed. Who did that?
But how do we go outside of time? I don't understand that. Why is the ayin outside of time? It's like the omek.
Yeah, ayin is, there's no time that's going to the name of Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud Kei Vav Kei, it's Haya Hove V'Yihye Ke'echad. It's Havaya, right? That's why it's called Havaya. That's the potential. When you are all the time staying in Elokim, so then Elokim, it's plurality. It has line of time. But in Yud Kei Vav Kei, there's no line of time. So that's why we don't have consciousness of it, because we usually see ourselves in the line of time. That's how we relate to ourselves. That's the whole process of Havdalah, where we separate. Because that person is no longer you, who did it. That's why it never happened. That's why there's no record of it. I mean, unless a person insists that it was him, so then like, okay.
Do you think that, I see here in Israel and in many other places, I don't want to go too off topic here, but there's a lot of what they call breath work. Where I don't know, I've never done a breath work workshop, but it's a big thing, which they talk about for healing, and I'm sure the little that I do know about breath work just from meditation is that very often what is suggested is that you take a breath in and you hold it, and then you take a breath out and you hold it. And it's in those two places of the ayin, after the in-breath and after the out-breath, that are the most important in the meditation process, which is kind of like the ayin that you're describing. But maybe we're getting too off the topic. Miriam's asking a question here. Do you see it, Mila?
Yes, I see. Okay, so let's read it. In paragraph 15, it speaks of Angel Michael, a limited power, an outer vessel of Kesser of Beriah, and through illumination from inner vessels of Kesser of Beriah via intermediary vessels, he is, I cannot see that.
Divested of his essence.
Divested of his essence, right. And included in a divine vitality. Right. That's when the whole inclusion happens between him and between Malach Gabriel. Right? Because there are two entities on two separate poles, right? One is Koach of Beriah, of Chesed of Beriah. The other one is Koach of Gvura of Beriah. Right? So how can they create? Right? They're too subjective. So the illumination from above happens and they retract from who they are in a way, and they become bottle. Yes, it is the process of Ratzah V'Shuv. And they go into the state of Ratzah. Okay, they become nullified. That's why they could become friends. They could mix. That's why we have chesed and gvura, gvura and chesed, right? Sefiros Omer. We read all these things, right? How is it? Because of the bittul. Otherwise, I am who I am. You are who you are. How can we join here? Right? It's through tiferet, right? Which is the midah of truth. Okay. When that's coming, we're actually in tiferes shebetiferes right now, as we speak, right? We are able to battle, okay, being completely lifted to a third dimension, not yours and not mine. Higher. Okay. That's why we could still remain married. I guess it's one because otherwise I think after Sheva Brachos, everybody would be like that. We're done. That's it. Bye. Sorry. Okay. But it's through the revelation of the Shekhinah, right, that subconsciously we go into that state of bittul and we're able to see another person's perspective. Okay. And that's where the whole mixing in happens. Mixing of the energies, two energies, feminine and, masculine. So then, we could show our gvura and they could show the chesed. Or we could show our chesed and they could show the gvura. Because interestingly, but the masculine energy is chesed. It's the feminine energy is gvura. And that's what actually attracts us. The gvura, the masculinity. We're like, oh, this is amazing, And femininity, that's what attracts them, but it's exactly the opposite.
So Miriam is also asking, what are the intermediary vessels that it happens?
So intermediary vessels, these are the Chayus, how they get the power, how they get the vitality. Because remember, or is pnimi, intermediary is Chayus, and external is Koach. They are on the level of Koach. All of creation is a Koach. Through Chayus, through the bittul, through Chayus, okay, they have the or, experiencing the or, which is the ora eloki. Okay, they're experiencing the pnimius of it. Because b'pnimius, remember, lamet kelim, Hashem took care of the system, right? That regardless where you are, you'll have godliness there. How? Through the inner kelim. Even if you find yourself, I don't know, in Honolulu, in Seder Ishtalshalos, okay, you could tap into godliness there. You don't have to wait until you're going to come to New York. You understand? Like, you don't have to travel. Meaning godliness is anywhere in Seder Ishtalshalos. Just stop and connect. Okay, so what are we going to do? Going to chapter 16?
Yeah.
Paragraph 16.
Look, I don't know if this is helpful for anybody, but I would recommend that if you can, those of you who are really doing Eon, to go back and really try and track the process of thought that Reb Hiller is going through, like to just track the different themes in each paragraph. At least from paragraph 11 onwards, from those mashalim, to see, because I was saying to Mila earlier that I'm finding that I feel that I understand the individual concepts, but I'm not necessarily linking them all together. So I went back to try and look at earlier paragraphs to try and just almost like write down one line about the main idea in each paragraph so that I could see following the train of thought of Reb Hillel. So I would recommend to anybody who can to do that, just so that we're following the train of thought as much as possible.
Okay, so what are we going to do now? Neria, should we do paragraph 16?
I think that we should.
Wait, did I ask a question?
Sure.
Sure.
So when you did that, Nuria, did you find the connection between everything?
Yeah, I was amazed. It starts to
Okay.
make sense. I felt like I was kind of a little bit, um, you know, a little bit lost. And when I went through and and did that, I started to see, Reb Hillel is very, very systematic. And but so you start to see what it is he's trying to say, but there are a lot of details as well. So you have to sift through all the details and see his point. What is the point he's trying to make? And then write that down. And then the next paragraph, what's the main point he's trying to make? And then you start to really see the flow of ideas.
Can you share your findings?
I'm still in the process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share it next week because I feel like it's still too wordy and that would get lost in all the words. So so at the beginning of next week's class, Linetta, I'll do that. So that, but the more you are familiar with it, the more whatever I do will make sense to you because you'll go like, oh, okay, now I understand why he brought, the question of the philosophers. But if you don't even remember that there were questions of philosophers or that they were philosophers, so it's still not going to make that much, it's not going to make that much more clarity for you. Meaning, the more you are familiar with the text, whatever I do in terms of kind of making a summary, a very short summary, then it'll help you. But if you don't know the text very well, it's going to just sound like a lot of words again. Do you know what I'm saying, Tippy?
But it could be also the headlines. Before you read an article, they give you a headline, which somehow gives you an idea what's about to come, and it kind of focuses you. So I think I wish when they wrote it all together, they would have been there because it gives you an idea of how things are being built, but it helps you focus of what's going to be the details of the whole idea.
Yeah, look, the truth is, Tsipi, when I started to do this, I realized that part of the work is finding one's own clarity in that. That's part of the work.
There's different levels of work. Like, for example, when learning Tanya, as I listen to different people lecture on it, they bring different ideas. Some pull out and talk about what the what the chapter is going to be. Other more get into details. So as individuals, we also focus in a different way. So when you're doing your work, you will see things that you will understand because of your experience or your mind works and so on. And obviously each one of us will bring out different things. But because of your experience, you probably do see the overall idea, what's the ticking point of this particular paragraph.
Right. Look, I definitely I feel that it's needed at this point, and I'm in the process of of trying to do that and trying to do it in a way that I feel will be really useful. Like you say, what are the headlines so that we can really follow his train of thought. But in general, and Bezrat Hashem, I'll do that at the beginning of next week's class. Okay, so but partially this is what Mila was doing for us now in the beginning of this class, was summarizing some of the ideas and putting them in context. But I'm going to do it paragraph by paragraph, and hopefully it will, it'll provide us with a map, a bit of a map, because we are in, we're in the middle of a jungle right now, and we're cutting a path through the jungle, and sometimes we want to get a map and see where we are on the map. But right now we're in the midst of, exploring Mimale Kolamim, how Hashem's light shines in this world and functions in this world. So let's go forward, Mila.
Okay. So, okay. Can you see? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just.
You can make it a bit bigger.
Amazing. Okay. Let's move on. Okay. We need to move on Mikol Hanal, right? And it follows from everything what we discussed above. שיש בבחינס אור האלוקי דמלכוס דאצילוס המתלבשת בביאה שני בחינס. That in the divine light of Malchus of Atzilus, the way it's being enclosed in the Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, there are two aspects. Okay, and this is nothing new. We already know that, right? This is b'chinas Chayus. This is the aspect of vitality, Chayus. Shehu b'chinas hamalchus hamitlabeshes b'chinas pnimis hakelim, the Keter de Beriah bichlal, ubifrad b'chol yud sefiros de biyah b'pnimius hakelim shebahem. Right, so this is the aspect of Chayus, the way it's being enclosed in the pnimius of the kelim, of the crown of Kesser of Beriah, in general, and in specifics, in all 10 sefiros, in the pnimius of kelim that's in them. Okay, and the mashal for this, hu b'chinas Chayus hanefesh b'guf. Right? It's the life force of the nefesh, meaning of the soul. Doesn't mean specifically nefesh, it means in general soul. That's in the body. And the other one is b'chinas koach. What is it? Shu or eloki, this is the godly light. Amitlabesh b'kli hachitzon de Keter de Beriah, in the external Keter of Beriah. Ubifrad b'chol b'chinas hakelim hachitzonium de yud sefirot de biyah. And specifically in all the aspect of the kelim, of the chitzonius kelim of the biyah, she'al ze nimshach hishavus, that through this, the actual creation happens. V'hamashal lezeh, hu mikoach hapo'el ha'oseh pe'ula chadasha, kanal barichut, right? And the mashal for this is the po'el. Now, obviously, when we read this, we should have one question. What would be the question? We thought that pnimis hakelim was or, isn't it? And the Chayus was intermediary kelim, and the Koach was external kelim. Now he shatters a little bit that perception that we had before, and he says, no, Chayus is the pnimis hakelim. So we're left with a question: what is happening with or? Where is or? So let's hold on with that question a little bit. Ach gam l'shnei bechinas elo nitzrach hamashal. However, also for these two aspects, we need a mashal. Okay, the or hashemesh or haner. We need to have this analogy of the light of the sun and the light of the candles are necessary. Okay, why is it? Ki agam shechayus eloki nimshal lechayus hanefesh. That although the life force of Hashem, the godly life force, is nimshal, right? The mashal that's brought up for this is the chayus of the soul in the body. Shemechaye, okay, shemichayus b'shiv'o, right? That gives life while it's flows. V'chein koach eloki, and so the godly light nimshal lekoach hapo'el ha'oseh pe'ula chadasha. right? And the godly light, the koach, the godly koach, is an example for the hapo'el, for the power of action, of a new action. Mitzat shebeis bechinas elu, the Chayus v'hisavus lo yamtze b'bechinas or, because these two aspects of actually enlivening and actually sustaining or coming into being, we do not see it in the light. Okay, mikol makom ein dimayon le'or eloki, but nevertheless they are not comparable to the godly light. Lebchinas chayus hanefesh v'koach hapo'el, right? Comparable to the vitality of the soul and to the power of the hapo'el of the action. Why is it? Chayus hanefesh melubash b'guf, because the power of the nefesh is enclosed in the body, right? V'lo yochol lahavshis es atzma mimena, right? Meaning, the soul cannot just take off at her own will. She signs an agreement with God. For X amount of years down here below, she's sustaining this body, period. Because we know she could sustain a whole city. It's an exceptionally painful experience for her unlimitedness to be fitting into our body. But nevertheless, that's what it is. She can't just like take off. It's very similar to the Koach hapo'el. While it's doing its pa'ula, she can, that power cannot just withdraw itself and now being performing another pa'ula. But she has to stop acting. Like, for example, I'm now giving tzedakah. I cannot all of a sudden write at the same time. I have to finish giving the tzedakah, then I could write. So in a way, the soul is also caught up in enlivening this particular body. Because she cannot just like take off and go and enliven another body, although potentially she could, but she doesn't have permission to do that. But it's not like this, the godly light. That although she's being enclosed in the inner kelim and chitzonian kelim, the Yetzirah, the biyah, la Chayus v'lahavos, to give life and to sustain. Mikol makam hu b'shas ma'aseh kodesh umuvdal. But nevertheless, it remains at the very time of the action, completely separate, holy and separate. Until he is able to be grasped in another action simultaneously, and this is the key word, at the same time. It's not either or, it's end. Okay, kanal, ra'aya lezeh, michatzois halayla, b'yitzes Mitzrayim, and we have recorded instance of such a thing for Hashem to do. At the same time, he was punishing at Chayus by Yitzes Mitzrayim. He was punishing and healing at the same time. Okay. And therefore, this is more like the light. Okay, it's not like more like Chayus. It's more like the light. And therefore, we do not see completely any change in the godly light. Even in the lowest level, we might think like, oh, maybe it's like my koach. Like if I write, I cannot put tzedakah. No, even on such a last madrega, Hamachayu mehava shuhu Malchus the Asiyah, which is the Malchus of the Asiyah. Okay, even on that last level, he's not caught up. He's not caught up at all. Kamamar ani havaya lo shinisi, as the saying is going, I am Hashem did not change. The bechinas ani, right? This is the aspect of ani, I am. Ubechinas is galus the Shem Hashem. True bechinas Malchus Atzilus, right? Because this is the revelation of the name of Hashem, which is the aspect of the Malchus of Atzilus. And even that, Lo Shiniti, I did not change. I read it Lamata Mala Afilu, but Tachtius Ha'olam Asiyah. That Malchus of Atzilus goes all the way down, descends downwards, even to the lowest levels of the world of Asiyah. Afilu Klipas V'Sitra Achra. Even in when Hashem creates, enlivens, and sustains the klipas and the other side, kamamar raglei yordes chulit, right? Like the expression that goes that these are the feet that go all the way down to the lowest of creations, which are klipas. And Hashem is lahachayesam, He enlivens them and brings them into being me'ayin leyesh. Okay. And even in that aspect, there's absolutely no change in Hashem. Okay? Ki hamshacha is hu b'derech or, because the hamshacha is in the way of light. Afal pikei nimshach min ha'or gam chayus v'isavus. But nevertheless, it's like or, but it also has the chayus and also has the koach. And it's not like the physical light that we don't see coming to being, which doesn't have the vitality, and we don't actually see coming into being from the physical light. And therefore we need the other two mashalim of the Chayus HaNefesh. Okay, and also the Koach hapo'el canal. Okay, so basically what we are doing is that we are sifting through all the mashalim, and we are taking a certain properties, and in our head we're creating this amazing understanding of the light of Hashem. That's light of the sun, like the light of the candle, like the vitality of the soul, and like the Koach hapo'el benifal at the same time, without the limitations. We only take the qualities of this, but without the limitations, okay, of all these mashalim, okay? Good? Yeah, I mean, we can't wrap our head around it because we don't know any of it. We hardly know how the soul enlivens the body, but then it says, you know what, it's still limited because it gets caught up in one body and not in two. I mean, Chas v'Sholom is going to get into, you're going to run to your makubal for dibuk, right? So it's one soul per one body. It's a limit. Hashem could do all kinds of things. Interesting things.
Mommy. Mila, can you just, like in your own words, say what you understood, other than the end nukuda, but that process of going from saying the issue with Chayus and Koach and then talking about light? How do you, like just to say in your own words what you understood?
Well, when we are talking about, let's understand Chayus and Koach. Chayus is the neshama coming to alive in the body, right? Koach is when I could do specific things with my body, okay? Now, this is Chayus and Koach. It's a limit for the soul, right? Meaning, b'shas ma'aseh, at the time of the being, I cannot be involved in anything else. I can now enliven the body, I don't know, plenty of money. I'm limited. Okay, so once I'm limited, I am caught up. If I'm caught up, that means I changed. There is a change. And for that reason, the three lower levels of the soul that mislabish in the body, okay, get affected by the activities that the body does. That's why if it's not such a good activity, a neshama has to go through purification process. Why? Because it's changed. Okay, so that's why there's such a place called Gehenna. Okay, unfortunately, right? It's a, you know, we don't scare people in Chabad about it, but it's a fact, right? So why is it? Because the neshama changes in these three levels. the activities that happen in the body affect these three levels. So therefore, we cannot say that Hashem is like that. Hashem is not like that. Hashem is not caught up and the world can affect on Hashem. The world has zero space in Hashem. That's how great his light is. That even Mamale, forget about Sova, we're not talking about Yehudillah. Even on the level of Mamale, the world absolutely does not, even to the slightest, affect God to such an extent. Doesn't, as if it doesn't exist, like the sun. Can you affect sun? No. But why the mashal of the sun wasn't good enough? Because it doesn't create, because it doesn't unite, because of all other reasons. So therefore, we're kind of getting this four mashalim, and they are all of them at the same time.
So he's doing a birur there. He's saying, like, you could think that if you just took, the Chayus and the Koach, that you could come to the conclusion that that Hashem gets impacted. And that's
exactly.
So that's where that mashal is incorrect for Hashem's light. But the or tells you how Hashem is not impacted. So you have to know what to take from each
Which
mashal.
properties, exactly, yes.
So
and that's where our iyun is taking place. Our iyun is that we lay all the mashalim, we lay all the aspects of each mashal, and we're going to pick and choose what are we taking and what are we not taking.
Right.
And then we're going to create with this amazing property, okay, that encompasses all four of them together. Okay.
All right. Okay, I understood that. Miriam is asking a question.
Is vitality of soul like a universal energy that enters and recedes, but remains as a river that flows into many directions or bodies? No, it could have a capacity to do that, but it doesn't do it. That's Hashem does it like that. Right. Hashem didn't give permission to that. That's where we say, umafli la'asois, right? That Hashem does wonders. This is one of the wonders of Hashem, that the neshama has a capacity, like its creator, to enliven a whole city. But it doesn't do it. It enlivens just one body. That symptom for the neshama is an exceptionally painful process. But she does it for the higher purpose, whatever else Hashem tells her, right? Like he has a whole deal with her. It's beautiful. Like when you read about it, Hashem shows the neshama everything. Which house is going to be born, what other parents are going to be, what is going to be doing, and all that stuff, right? So the neshama consciously goes for it. So we can never come to our parents and say, well, we didn't really choose you. Actually, we choose our life like just 100%. Okay, we're impacted with it. And because we also see the advantages of the soul, because the soul sees behind the scenes. She sees what's the higher purpose, what it needs to accomplish in this world, and so on and so forth, okay? And what the reward would be, okay, which is the higher consciousness of the essence of Hashem. That's why she's coming down here, okay? And
when you were describing this, there's a level within us when we put away all our ideas of what we would like to accomplish and we focus on one inyan that we really want to accomplish. Is that also painful for us? But it's more on a conscious level where we're saying, this is what I'm going to work on. That's where I'm going to put my koachas, my focus, all my talents, and everything else we put aside in order to really accomplish that inyan.
We definitely get messages from our neshama. There is a reason why one person wants this, the other person wants the other thing, right? I mean, we could give a lot of rational explanations as to why we want to do what we want to do. But Baal Shem Tov says that whatever, the person desires is ultimately aligned with his mission. Okay? Even like with money, some people want to be rich, and the other people are like, I couldn't care about money anymore. Like, well, not anymore. I never cared. And some people want to be this, and some people are more drawn to nature. The other person wants to go to the market. Yeah, it's like there is a reason why we want different things, right? Like, look at all the professions that is out there, right? How come? It's because we have different missions and we have different things to accomplish in the world, and we are drawn to different things. Okay, because we don't come with a manual with our missions. Like then we have the Rebbe, and then we have different tzaddikim that guide different people. So it's okay.
I think we can end early today.
Yeah, we could end on time.
On time. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, so it looks like we're in a state of Pele. Right? I wonder.
Yeah. Look, going back to Reb Hillel in the whole of chapter 1, and also actually in paragraph 4 of chapter 3, he says that, if you learn b'derech prat, if you study and you do iyun and you go into the details and you go and, review this, then it starts to enter your neshama. Whereas if you're just learning b'derech klal, it's not going to come into the realm of knowledge. It's not going to be something that you've integrated into yourself. And so this is part of the challenge of this kind of learning, is to go and do review, and then you really come to know it. So as much as you can, that's where you'll get the benefit. The whole of chapter 1, he was really trying to tell us that if you do the iyun, then you begin to touch your bina liba. And those of you who are doing it know it, that when you really do the work with this, with these texts, as hard as it may be, it creates you're creating a pathway between your bina and the highest levels of atik, of oneg, the bina of atik, which is bina liba. You're creating that inside of you, and it begins to change your brain. It begins to change your heart, and it's slowly, it's the long short way. It slowly changes the way you think and the way you understand the world. But it only happens if you learn b'derech prat, meaning that you go and you sit with the details and you struggle with them and you work through it and you go back and do the work with it. So Bezrat Hashem, I bless myself and I bless all of you to be able to do that and to experience the oneg that comes with that. And, I've said this before, and some people took me up on it. I'm always available to do a one-on-one session with somebody to take a particular paragraph and to learn how to do this work, so that you don't just stay in iyun, but you go into rochav and then go into the meditation stage, which can take you into oimek, and where you really begin to sense the concepts, not just know them as ideas. So, I'm just putting that out there again. Anybody who wants to be in touch with me to practice and to understand more deeply the method of doing that, or at least the method that I've come to understand. Anybody can be in touch with me. All right, so Zvat Hashem, we'll see you next week. And yeah, anything else you want to say, Mila?
No, it's just beautiful. Beautiful, Baruch Hashem. I'm happy we are back. I actually missed the class so much. As difficult as it is, every time we go through it, I feel there's a new hamshacha is really brought down, and it's really, really beautiful. I hope you feel that as well. And I'm wishing everybody a beautiful, and it's Tiferet should be Tiferes. I think this is what we're doing. Let's just go for it, Let's just go. And then we'll figure out our way. And that's what we're doing. We're jumping into the water, and look at that. We know how to swim for 2 years, over 2 years.
Right.
Hashem. Okay,
May you go from chayil to chayil.
Amen.
So much. Thank you, girls. Both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Amen.